Have you ever stood on the edge of a conversation, burning to speak, to set the record straight, to fight for your truth, and yet something inside whispered, "No, be still"? In a world that screams to be heard, those who hold their silence often speak the loudest. The Stoics understood this. That restraint isn't weakness. It's a kind of quiet power, a shield that guards your peace, when words would only sharpen the chaos. In this video, you'll uncover 9 moments when silence isn't just wise, it's transformative. When silence protects your dignity, preserves your energy, and lets truth, karma, and time speak on your behalf. If you've ever been lied about, betrayed, provoked, or taken for granted, this is for you. Let's walk through the storm together, calmly, quietly, unshaken. And if this message speaks to your soul, consider subscribing to Stoic Reflections Daily. Leave a like or a thought below. Sometimes the quietest voices reach the furthest. Sometimes silence isn't just golden, it's the only thing that keeps your truth intact. There's something deeply unjust about being lied about, especially when you know you've done nothing wrong. The urge to speak up can be overwhelming, to correct the rumor, to prove you're not who they say you are. But here's the paradox. The more you chase clarity, the more chaos they create. Because people who spread lies aren't looking for truth. They're looking for a show. They want your panic, your over-explaining, your emotional unraveling. So they can twist that too. And if you react, you've already stepped into their trap. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the Stoic standard. Integrity over image. Self-respect over self-defense. Because truth, real truth, doesn't need defending. It moves slowly, but it always returns home. Let me tell you a story. James was accused of something he never did. Office gossip spread like wildfire. People turned cold. And yet, he didn't fight. He didn't explain. He stayed calm. He did his job. He let his character speak. And weeks later, the truth surfaced. The accuser was exposed. And James? He walked through the fire without saying a word. That's the kind of power silence gives you. So the next time someone lies about you, don't perform your innocence. Let time perform your justice, because silence is never empty. It's full of answers. But what if the wound doesn't come from strangers, but from those you once called your own? Betrayal never announces itself. It doesn't knock on the door. It walks right in wearing a familiar face, a friend, a partner, someone you trusted. And then one day, they shift. A message goes unanswered. A secret leaks. A knife finds your back and it fits perfectly, because you never saw it coming. Your first instinct? You want to confront. To ask, how could you? To demand, do you even care what you've done? But here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. People who betray you already made peace with it. In their mind, they've justified it. Some don't even feel guilt. Others do, but not enough to stop. And the more you seek closure, the more you bleed. Because what they truly want now is your reaction, your confusion, your anger, your energy. That's their fuel. That's how they stay relevant in the story. But silence? Silence robs them of all of it. Let me tell you about Sarah. She had a best friend for over a decade. They shared everything until one day. That friend used her secrets as weapons. Sarah had every reason to explode, but she didn't. No fight. No message, just a quiet exit. And do you know what happened? The friend waited for the drama. She was ready for the chaos. But all she got was absence. And that absence, it echoed louder than any scream ever could, because when someone betrays you, they expect fireworks. But when you give them nothing, they realize they didn't just lose access to your voice, they lost access to your soul. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll talk about insults and why the strongest response is no response. And if this speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe, like, or leave a thought below. Sometimes silence shared becomes a truth remembered. Even words meant to hurt lose their power when they meet the wall of your calm. Insults are cheap. That's why the weak use them so often. A sarcastic jab, a passive-aggressive comment, a public shot just sharp enough to sting, but soft enough to hide behind. And the room waits, watching you. Will you snap? Will you throw something back? Will you defend yourself? It's a trap, one that's been laid carefully. Because here's the truth. People who insult you aren't seeking truth. They're seeking control, and your reaction, your raised voice, your clever comeback, only proves one thing, that they got to you. But the Stoics saw through this long ago. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." It sounds simple, but in the moment, when your pride feels bruised, walking away feels like losing, until you realize the one who stays calm is the one holding the power. Let me tell you about David. He just earned a promotion. And at the company party, a coworker, jealous and bitter, took a jab in front of everyone. I guess they're giving promotions to just anyone now. The room froze. All eyes turned to David, but he didn't argue. He didn't defend. He didn't even flinch. He smiled and said nothing, just silence. And in that silence, he didn't just win the room, he won something greater, his own peace. Because silence isn't weakness. It's proof that your self-worth isn't up for debate. So next time they provoke you, remember, not every fire deserves your oxygen. If this landed with you, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily, leave a like, or share your thoughts below. Your silence might just be someone else's awakening. And sometimes, the loudest drama comes from the quietest lies dressed in tears. Some people don't want peace. They want performance. They twist stories, omit context, shed a few tears. And suddenly, you're the villain. In a story you never agreed to be part of. You try to stay calm. You bring facts. You explain what really happened. But none of it matters. Because in the court of public opinion, emotion beats logic every time. And the more you speak, the worse you look. It's not a conversation, it's theater. And they're not looking for resolution. They're looking for an audience. That's the trap. And Stoicism shows us how to avoid it. Epictetus said, "To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate." When someone plays the victim, they're not seeking understanding. They're seeking attention. And if you jump in to defend yourself, you've just validated their performance. Let me tell you about Rachel. She had a coworker. Every time she was held accountable, she'd twist the facts, cry, shift the blame. Rachel stayed calm, brought proof, explained everything clearly, and still, she lost. Because the other woman wasn't playing chess. She was playing drama. So Rachel made a choice. No more defending, no more explaining. Just grounded, stoic silence. Over time, the pattern revealed itself. The sob stories, the shifting enemies, the emotional chaos. And just like that, The audience stopped watching, because truth always outlasts performance. So the next time someone paints you as the villain, don't rush to correct the canvas. Let their art fall apart on its own. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore how silence becomes your loudest answer when the people around you start to take you for granted. If you've ever been misunderstood, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily, leave a like, or share your quiet truth below. You don't need to shout to be seen. Not every absence is a punishment. Sometimes it's a revelation. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from being ignored, but from being expected. You show up, you listen, you care, you're there every time without being asked. At first, it matters, then it's assumed, and slowly it becomes background noise, not because you've changed, but because your consistency made you invisible. And here's the bitter truth. People don't value what's always there. They value what they're afraid to lose. You keep giving, reaching out, texting first, asking how their day was. Well, nobody remembers to ask about yours. And one day, you stop. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to see what remains. When effort becomes silence, that's what Jake did. He was the reliable one, the friend who remembered birthdays, the coworker who stayed late, the partner who never forgot to care. But over time, he noticed something. No one reached out unless he did first. If he went quiet, the silence stayed. So he made a choice. No speech, no drama, just distance. And that silence, it revealed everything. The ones who cared, they came closer. The rest, they disappeared quietly. And that was the answer he never had to ask for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. Don't waste your life being present for people who never notice when you're gone. Let your absence speak. Let it echo in the spaces they once took for granted." If this resonates, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Leave a like or share your own quiet revelation below. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Some people don't want peace. They want your attention dressed as a reaction. Some people don't want a real conversation. They want a reaction. They poke, they prod. They say just enough to sting, but never enough to be called out. And when you flinch, when you raise your voice, when you fight back, they smile, not because you lost, but because they gained control. You see, provocation isn't about truth, it's about power. And if they can make you angry, they can steer the moment. You become the puppet, and they pull the strings. But here's what the Stoics understood. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to not enter the game. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Let me tell you about Adam. He had a coworker who lived off chaos. Every meeting, sarcasm. Every email, passive jabs. At first, Adam tried to defend himself. He argued, explained, justified. And every time he left the room more drained. Then one day, Adam made a choice. The next time it happened, he didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't even blink. Just a quiet nod and calm silence. And that silence? It broke the pattern. Because when fire meets fuel, it grows. But when fire meets stillness, it dies. So the next time someone tries to shake you, stay still. Stay solid. Let them dance around your calm. If this message speaks to the part of you that's tired of being pulled by noise. Subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Like or share your thoughts below. Because your power is not in your reaction. It's in your refusal to be moved. Eventually, your silence will speak louder than all the apologies they never made. There comes a moment, after the damage is done, after you've gone quiet, after you've finally stopped chasing, when they remember you. The way you listened, the way you showed up, the way you gave, without keeping score. And suddenly, your silence becomes deafening. But here's what you must understand. If someone only starts valuing you after you leave, they never truly valued you while you were there. What they miss is not just your presence, it's the access. And letting them back in, that doesn't heal anything. It just tells them your boundaries were optional. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery means this: you don't return to the places that broke you, just because they finally noticed your absence. Let me tell you about Olivia. She gave everything to her relationship. Time, energy, love, and slowly he stopped noticing. Assumed she'd always be there, took her presence as permanent. So one day, she left, no fight, no explanation, just silence. At first he brushed it off, then came the weeks, the months, the unanswered calls, and the echo of someone he didn't realize he needed until she was already gone. He begged, promised change, swore it would be different, but Olivia had already healed in silence, and that silence became her freedom. So if you're tempted to reopen that door, ask yourself, are you honoring them or betraying yourself? If this message sits heavy in your chest, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Leave a like or a quiet comment below, because not every door that knocks deserves to be opened again. In a world obsessed with noise and visibility, your stillness becomes rebellion. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that love must be earned, that presence must be explained, and that silence means something's wrong, so we perform. We overgive. We overshare. We over-explain. Just to be seen. Just to be enough. Just to prove we matter. But what if the performance is the very thing clouding your worth? The Stoics believe that a man of virtue does not beg to be noticed. He stands still and lets the world reveal itself. Because silence is not just the absence of words. It's a filter. When you stop explaining, you see who listens without being told. When you stop proving, you see who believes without evidence. And when you stop chasing, you see who comes closer. Let me ask you this. If you went silent tomorrow, number posts, no updates, no apologies, who would still feel your presence? That's the difference between audience and connection, between noise and truth. Silence doesn't isolate you. It refines your circle. It shows you who's paying attention when you're not performing. So step back, not to disappear, but to observe. Because sometimes the most powerful act of self-worth is simply doing nothing extra. If this reflection stirs something within you, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Tap like or share your quiet realizations below. And remember, you never have to shout to be heard by the right people. And when you finally learn the cost of your energy, you stop wasting it on the wrong battles. Not every battle deserves your sword. Some arguments aren't worth winning. Some people aren't worth convincing. And sometimes, peace is the prize that only shows up when you stop fighting for the wrong things. We live in a world that worships the win, clapbacks, victories, proving a point. But what if winning meant walking away whole, not walking away, right? The Stoics taught that real freedom isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to raise his voice to be powerful. Epictetus didn't chase revenge to feel justice. Their greatest victories? Inner stillness, the kind of silence that doesn't flinch under pressure, that doesn't get pulled into petty debates, that knows how to say, "You're not worth my peace." Let me ask you, when was the last time you chose peace over being right? There's a deep kind of power in saying nothing, not because you're weak, but because your peace is no longer up for negotiation. You can lose the argument and still win the moment, because the moment you stop defending yourself to people who misunderstand you by choice, you reclaim all the energy they were stealing. So choose stillness, not to retreat, but to rise above. And when you do, you'll find a rare kind of strength that doesn't shake, doesn't break, and doesn't need to be loud to be heard. If this quiet truth resonates with you, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Tap like or leave a wordless comment, just to let the world know your peace is priceless. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to fight to be strong. And you don't need to explain just to prove you were right. In every lie that's told about you, in every betrayal, every insult, every silent goodbye, your greatest protector has never been your voice. It's been your stillness, because silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've grown. It means you no longer argue with those committed to misunderstanding you. It means you trust time and truth and karma to handle what your words no longer need to. The Stoics didn't teach us to escape life. They taught us to master it, quietly, courageously, calm. So the next time you're pushed to react, remember, sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. If this message landed in a place words rarely reach, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily. Leave a like or drop your reflection in the comments. And if you can't find the words, just leave this, we'll understand.